Welcome back. It's week 7. This is our lucky 13, the 13th online session. We've had 4 Zoom sessions, I think, and 7, 8, 9, maybe 9 of these recorded sessions. I can't remember exactly. I'm not going to look it up. But anyway, we are back, and we have lots of administravia to handle. Administravia. This word means things about, things to do with. So administravia means lots of administrative type things to handle. Some are specific to this class, and some are broader. And we'll get to that in a minute. But this evening, it's my Sunday evening. This evening I wanted to kick around a few other ideas, just things to talk about. It's just English time. It's not anything terribly important. Things in the news recently. Well, North Korea's been in the news recently. Lots of wondering about the status of the leader of North Korea. Is he sick? Is he dead? And I don't know. Unless there's been an update the last 2 hours I haven't seen. Seems like nobody really knows. But my point here is that this is a class on public administration. It's not a class on politics or health. And so it's not really a direction that I want to go. Especially because the way I see it, I'm a guest in this country, South Korea, and so I don't want to get too much involved in very controversial topics, especially not with my students. So the status of the leader of North Korea is not something that we're going to deal with, just raising it as a news item because most of you administrative students, public administration students, and you should be keeping up with the things happening in the world. You should be keeping up with what's happening in your country and in your neighboring countries in the region of Northeast Asia. Because all of that does ultimately impact the administration of society. We could talk about coronavirus. It's impacting our semester, of course. One of the interesting things to talk about is that back in February, when things were blowing up in South Korea, the world and Koreans were very unhappy with how things were happening and how their government was working. And now, a few months later, we look and say, looks like Korea did pretty well. The world is saying, hey, Korea's a good model for how to handle coronavirus, for how government can handle these kinds of pandemics. But let's not get too proud, because you might remember that at the same time, a month ago, most of the world was pointing to Singapore and saying, they've done a great model, they are the true global leader, they are the model we all want to follow. And in the last week, Singapore has blown up. Coronavirus has become a great issue there. And these things can change very quick. It can change very fast. And we can't always plan or know, and the best plans can fail. So I wouldn't get too proud, too certain. Right now, Korea and Taiwan look like the best, but it was only 3 months ago that people really thought Korea was in crisis. The first week of March was terrible. Here we are the last week of April. That's only 8 weeks. So we look at a place like, well, Italy is a disaster, of course. We've all seen that. United States has gotten much, much worse in the past week. So who's doing well and who's not? It's hard to say. So we won't get too involved with that either. It's just another topic that people could talk about. What I want to suggest is that these kinds of things get dangerously close to politics, that a lot of people's pride and emotion can get involved, and that makes it a hot topic. Hot, in this case, is bad. A sore subject, something that is not safe to talk about in casual talk, Much better to talk about the weather. Now, the weather in Korea the past couple of days, this is Sunday night, has been very windy. The 강풍, right? The strong winds. That's a safe thing to talk about. The weather's been beautiful outside. It's been sunny. No, not too much clouds and no rain, but very windy. Now, another 2 days from now, who knows? But right now, it certainly looks like spring. A typical Korean spring has lots of wind, and then a little bit later in the spring, we may see typhoons. All right, so that's just a starter. I'm talking pretty much full speed English, moderating my language just a little bit, being just a little careful with a few words, repeating a few things, but generally speaking, pretty much American speed English, the way I usually talk. Hey, I forgot to turn on the lights. There's a light, and there's a light. Do I look better? Do I look worse? Say nice things. All right, so let's move on to the things that are coming up specific to this class. First, the thing everybody's worried about, I've gotten some contacts, some emails and cacao about, is midterms. Well, as I mentioned in the Zoom class last week, the midterms are scheduled for May 11 to 15. Actually, I mentioned in last week's recorded lecture too. But I have more information here. The one-to-one interview test will take place through Zoom. Now, it's not the same link that we use for our classes. The new link will be provided in the CTL. It's not there yet because I need to confirm a couple of things, make sure that it is a stable and permanent link, a URL. But I'll get it up there in a day or two. And, you know, the test is May 11. We're 2 weeks away. The testing schedule link is in the CTL. You can choose your time. I think most of you have. You can change your time. Let's take a quick look. There is the CTL. Now, if we're looking at week 6, and actually by the time you see this, it's already week 7, you can't see that. So you gotta make sure that you're looking at the right time. And then we go to Midterms Timetable, and we open up the timetable. I don't actually have to do it here, but anyway, you can see it's a little bit cut off in this image. Let me go to the other one. Here. I can move this around as I like. If I can just grab it. Whoops. It's hard to grab. There we go. So, what you will notice is I've made a couple of areas. Red, that is simply to show my EPA1 classes that it is confirmed that they will have a paper test, a listening test, on Monday and Tuesday at those times. But the gray area means I'm not doing interviews those times. Now, I have told my EPA 1 day students and night students that they probably don't want to do their listening test before the interview. So some of these will probably change. But for EPA 3, we're only doing interviews, so it's no problem. Anytime is fine. You can change your time. Yeah, you can change your time for your test. I wish you not change your time 15 minutes or 30 minutes before your test, because that can throw off my schedule. But certainly the night before you're scheduled to take a test, you can change your schedule. Friday looks really full already. Middle Friday has a couple of slots, but Friday pretty full, and then Friday evening, well, it's possible, but I really hope to save Friday night for the night students. Thursday's totally open, but I don't know your other class schedule, test schedules, whatever, so I don't presume what's best for you. We have 15 people in this class. We've got lots of slots in the late afternoon. You choose your time. That's your thing. That's not my thing. And we're out. Alright, so the midterm timetable. We will be using the waiting room function for Zoom. Now, this new link is to a meeting session that is not one of our regular class sessions, and because we can have lots of students queuing up, right, because oh, I'm going to be in 10 minutes, I want to get ready, so I want to go in. So we're using the waiting room function. I'll show you that in just a second. That means that when you go in, you're going to get a message that says the professor or the host, that's me, will invite you into the main room. Let's just take a look at that. It looks like this. It's a pop-up in Zoom, just like the other pop-ups, but instead of you jumping straight in, it gives you this "please wait until the host invites you" message. Easy enough, right? Next point is that April 30th is a holiday. That's a Thursday. Your class is on a Thursday. So there's no Zoom this week. We'll have a second recording for this week. And then, of course, next week, May 5 is a holiday. May 5 is a Tuesday. Not your problem. I suspect there's a fair number of students who think that May 4, Monday, should be a holiday. Well, you know what? You can make it a holiday if you want, because the first class of each week is a recording. So if you want to take the day off, that's fine. As long as you watch the video before our Zoom session, I don't really care. But your one advantage to watching earlier is, as I will in this class, sometimes in the live session or the recorded session, I will give you information about assignments or tests that don't go on the CTL, that don't go on the e-boards. There's an advantage to watching the video and watching the Zooms on the scheduled time. So that's up to you. Alright, we're taking a look at the CTL, and we can see a few things that are new. Hang on a second, let me pop right back to our PowerPoint, and there's nothing else here we've done for today, so I'm going to close that. It's my double check. Make sure I don't make a mistake. Alright, if we look at week 7, we can see 2 new assignments. Now I get this studio with this edit or modify button. You don't get it. But anyway, in week 7 we have 2 new assignments. You should pay attention to these things. Now I'm going to go back for a second and notice that in all the way back to week 5. Why? Well, today is Sunday. It's 8:30 p.m. on Sunday when I'm recording this, and so technically, according to the 2-week schedule, I posted these, I uploaded these at the end of the possible week 5. In fact, week 6 here, it was in the middle of the supposed week 6, but I actually did it yesterday, which was near the end of week 6. But you'll notice that from these areas here, because my picture's in the way, you can't see much, I did check the notebooks, I did check the listening logs. So let's go ahead and go there. There are 2 assignments here. The first one that I put up is C-suite. Now C-suite are, as I said in the Zoom class, suite means a collection of rooms that are together, like in a hotel suite could be 2 or 3 bedrooms with a living room that are designed to be sold or rented for the night as a group. Or an office suite could be that there are 2 or 3 offices with 1 lobby, waiting room, 1 secretary or staff of secretary, but 1 meeting room and 2 or 3 private offices off of that. We use the word C-suite to refer to the collection of most senior officers in an organization. Chief officers. So in the Zoom class, I gave the example of CEO as Chief Executive Officer. Give me 7 more. What are other C's that you know? Well, as we go through this program tonight, we're going to hear of at least one more. I hope if we get everything done, if we get as far as I expect to get to tonight, we'll hear at least one other C. And it's your job to look it up. I'm not telling you. Now here's the key point, because I talked about this in the Zoom class, and I actually uploaded this yesterday. I'm not giving a lot of time for this assignment. People who don't watch the videos on time are going to lose if they don't check the CTL, because this one closes Tuesday night, 11:55 p.m. So if somebody doesn't watch this video until Wednesday, they lose. Right? Just send a simple file. Could be a text file, TXT, could be MS Word, could be Arehango, I don't care. Any kind of simple file with 7 or more C-suite officers, not including CEO, which is Chief Executive Officer. Alright, so that's assignment number 1. And assignment number 2 is connected with the reading for this week. It's connected with the major listening for this week, and it's called Looking Backwards. Now, Looking Backwards is the name of a famous book, one of my favorite fiction books, and it was written, oh gosh, I don't remember, 1910 maybe, by someone who was concerned with the industrialization process and how the world was getting turned upside down. And it's a great book by Edward Bellamy, I think. You can look it up. The whole book is available online if you're interested. It's a fun book, Looking Backwards. And the situation in that book is that he is someone who has slept for 60 years or something like that. The Rumpelstiltskin kind of effect, if you've heard of Rumpelstiltskin. And he wakes up in the future, and he sees all these changes. And everybody wants to talk to him about the olden days. So he's talking about the olden days, which are fresh in his memory, but are long in the past for these people. So he is looking back into his past. He's looking backwards. He's looking back into his past. So looking backwards simply means looking at the past and talking about what has happened. So that's an assignment. Imagine you're 60 years old. Tell me about your career and your personal highlights from the past 30 plus years. If you graduated from university in 28, now you're 60, it's 32. Tell me about your career and personal highlights since you graduated from university. This would mostly involve the past perfect and present perfect tenses, both simple and progressive. Simple tense and progressive tense for the past perfect and present perfect. In this case, I don't need a text. I don't need a written file. Just make a recording. Now you can write it out and read it on the recording. I don't care. But an audio recording, due May 3rd. That's next week, Sunday, 11:55 p.m. And the tenses that you'll be working with, or the phrases you'll be working with, will be things like I did, that's simple past. I have done, present perfect. I have been doing, present perfect progressive, or present perfect continuous, the ing form. I had done, past perfect. I had been doing, past perfect progressive. I'm not going to teach the perfect tenses. You've studied these in high school, maybe middle school. You don't need somebody to lecture about these tenses. You've been lectured to before. So if you don't know them, look them up. Look them up in English, look them up in Korean. I don't care. But I want to hear, and I want to hear several of these. I don't want to hear everything. I did. Okay? This is the kind of thing that can be on your midterm test. And I'll be listening for various forms, various tenses. So if you only do the same thing, well, you don't get as many points. Remember that the test is a positive test, or a positive, I can't even say it, positivistic test. I don't want to mark mistakes. I'm not interested in mistakes. I'm interested in successes. Show me what you can do. All right? So that's your assignment, May 3rd, and you can use that assignment, basically, probably, pretty much the same thing on a midterm test. I don't guarantee what question I'm going to ask. I don't guarantee it's going to be the exact same question. But if you have practiced this, then if I were to ask you, it's now the year 2015, 5 years ago, and you are living in year 2015, and I say, tell me about your high school days, or tell me about your middle school days. Go. All right? And we'll work on this in this book, and you'll get a better feel for it. All right. Looking backwards. And that's pretty much all we need to do in the CTL. There are 2 other files that I put up a couple weeks ago that you have seen. Power breakfast and other types of meals. And time and clock prepositions. I'm just going to pop through it real quick to remind you. Yeah. We talked about this. And yep. We talked about this. So there you go. So now that goes goodbye. I have something here that's fun, but we don't need it just yet. And that's some other work that we don't need. And that's my emails you don't need. And so, we can blow that up while you are opening your book to page 20. Page 20. Page 20, page 20. Okay. Read and listen to the information about Carly Fiorina. I'm going to read this one. I'm not going to use the audio because it's not very good. Carlton Carly Fiorina is the President, Chief Executive Officer, and Chairwoman of Hewlett-Packard Company. Hewlett-Packard is a leading global provider of computer products and services. Fiorina has been at Hewlett-Packard since 1997. Remember, this book was made about the year 2000. She has been CEO since July 1999, making her the first female CEO of one of America's 20 largest corporations. Fiorina has held top management positions for nearly 20 years. Before 1997, she worked at AT&T and Lucent Technologies. At Lucent, she was president of its largest division, the global services provider business. In 1999, Fortune magazine named her the most powerful woman in American business. Wow. I'll tell you a little more about Carly Fiorina. She ran for president in, I don't remember, 2004, 2008. And, of course, she didn't win. We know that. And she wasn't even one of the top finalists, but she did run. She got attention. People were paying attention to the fact that, well, this was one of the first women running for president that people thought could maybe have a chance. There were a couple other women who ran before her, but this is the first one where people said, well, wow, she could have a chance. From time to time, the U.S. elects a business person as president. Donald Trump ran on I'm a businessman, I know how to help the economy. He ran on that platform. He wasn't the first. He won't be the last. So that's Carly Fiorina, right? Now, part 2. Answer the questions. Who's Carly Fiorina? Well, you could pull it right out of the first sentence, right? Carly Fiorina is the President, Chief Executive Officer, and Chairwoman of the Hewlett-Packard Company. Boom. Easy. Let's go back and talk about TOEIC. TOEIC reading, a good idea for TOEIC reading is to read the questions before you read the topic, before you read the material. Now, TOEIC always gives you answers to choose from, right? But for a good TOEIC strategy, don't read the answers. That will confuse you. Just read the questions. Because then when you read the article, you know what's important. You know what's not important. So if you read something and it wasn't one of the questions, forget about it. Just pass it. Now there are some people who read the question, read the material, and stop and answer the question. The problem with that is that some questions are more complex comprehension. It's not take this information from this sentence. It's take 2 or 3 sentences, put them together, think about it, and what does it mean? Actually, TOEIC doesn't do much of that because TOEIC is a lower level. Remember BICS and COLP? TOEIC is more of a BICS level, basic. But if you get into the IELTS or the TOEFL or some of the other more complex language tests, definitely it makes a difference. So you want to read the questions and then read the material, and then it'll stick to you better. And when you get back to the questions, you'll kind of know where it is, or you can find it real fast. How long has she been with Hewlett-Packard? Well, let's imagine right now it's the year 2000. If that were true, then she's been with HP since 1997, right? Anyway, we could say since 1997. How long has she been in her current position? Since 1999. Now, saying things like since 1997 and since 1999 provides the right answer. But I want to hear you showcase your English. Remember showcase? From Young Public Servant for a Day. I want you to showcase your English. That means give me more than just a itty-bitty short answer, because since 1997 is a C answer. It's correct, but it's not much. But a longer answer, she's been at HP or Hewlett-Packard since 1997. No, that's an A answer. And if you want the A plus answer, then you have to give me something more than what's in the book. She's been at HP since 1997. Only about 3 years. Do something with the information you have to show me that you understand it. And again, we can guess this book is from the year 2000, or you could change it. Or you could say, but she's not anymore. I heard she's out of the company. Anything you want to do, show me that your brain is working, that you're not just spitting out the English in the book. Fiorina has been at Hewlett-Packard since 1997. That's a B answer. Linguistically correct. All the language is right. It's more than just since 1997, but it's still just straight from the book. Showcase your English. How long has she worked in management? Nearly 20 years. So this is the kind of thing we're trying to do. Where did she work before Hewlett-Packard? AT&T and Lucent Technologies. Now, AT&T you may have heard of. AT&T is the traditional, original American telephone company. American Telephone and Telegraph, AT&T. So you can think of it as something like KT. And AT&T is one of the two major cell phone providers now in the U.S. Just like KT is battling with SK. Same kind of situation. And what did she do at Lucent Technologies? She was president of its largest division, the Global Services Provider business. I'm not sure exactly what that is. But by the way, Lucent is a company that does lots of different kinds of electrical and electronic material, but not really high tech. For example, fluorescent lights. Lucent is a big company that owns lots of smaller companies, and one of the things that they got known for is fluorescent lights. The kind of things you find at the top of our classroom, up in the ceiling in the classroom. Not the LEDs, not the old round bulb, although they made those years and years ago. But they're maybe well known for fluorescent lamps. So anyway, 2 is really simple. Question, answer, not a big thing. Number 3 is a little bit more challenging. Page 20. Choose 2 possible answers from sentences 1 through 6 for each question below. So we have 6 sentences. I'm an accountant for about 10 years. At Norcom, I was a sales director since 1998. I'm in telecommunications, and I was in the computer industry. Those are the 6 answers. Now we have 3 questions, A, B, C. So next to each question there are 2 blanks, and your goal is to put a number from a sentence next to one of the questions. I'm just going to read the questions for you, then I'm going to give you 2 minutes to work on it. A, what do you do? B, how long have you been in this position? C, where did you work before this? You got 2 minutes. Go. Okay. I think that's 2 minutes. What do you do? Well, 1, I'm an accountant. Or 5, I'm in telecommunications. So we have the option of answering by my job or my profession or my career or my occupation, or my field of work. And I'm going to explain this in just a moment. B, how long have you been in this position? This position means this current job that you have. And the answers are 2, for about 10 years, or 4, since 1998, excuse me. C, where did you work before this? 3, at Norcom, I was a sales director. Or 6, I was in the computer industry. Now I'm going to talk about 4 different words that are related but different. And I'm going to pop these up in Notepad for you as I work them through. Let's see. You have to shrink this down a little bit so you can read it. So the first, job. Okay. Occupation. Career. Profession. And some people would also add two more words that I'm just going to write down here on the bottom: employment and work. Okay, employment and work at the bottom are a little bit different. They are much fuzzier. They're much broader. They're not specific, narrow. They're not connected to a particular job. They are the idea that you are working, that you have a job, that you are employed. Okay, a much fuzzier word, and I know I'm using one word to describe another. But the key words here are job, and job sounds like one particular, I can't type. One particular thing you are doing now. Okay. It is the current employer and the current type of work you are doing. So maybe you are a 청소 아줌마 at Gimyeong University. What's your job? I'm a cleaning woman at Gimyeong University. Okay. And you can change companies, or you can change jobs inside the same company, and in either case we would say you change jobs. Oh, now I'm a 청소 아줌마 at City Hall. Or, well, now I am a gardener at Gimyeong University. I changed my job. Maybe my pay changed, but my working conditions and what I do changed. So job is the most basic, lowest level of thinking about something. And if you have a part-time job, we use the word job. Okay? Be careful with the word Arbeit. Arbeit in German just means job or work or employment. It's a very fuzzy word. In Korean, it's used to mean a short-term job. Okay, now short-term is different from part-time, and I'm going to put that down a little bit lower. Part-time, I cannot type tonight, equals less than full-time. Full-time is usually something like 40 hours per week. Imagine Monday through Friday, 8-hour day, go to work at 9, leave at 6, 1 hour lunch, 2 15-minute breaks. We consider it a 40-hour week. Part-time is less than full-time. You only work 32 hours a week. You only work 27 hours a week. Maybe you don't get health insurance or other benefits, okay? But then we have the second thing, which is what we usually will call seasonal, okay, or non-permanent. Maybe it's contract. This is the opposite of permanent. Permanent means once you get your job, you are expected to stay until you are old and you retire. I'm a professor. Retirement age for professors is 65. Lucky me. Some other people, retirement age might be 60 or 62. The normal retirement age. Now, some companies will push you out early because they want to save money, or because they think that older workers are not as effective, they don't work as hard, or something like that. I don't know. Arbeit does not mean part-time. In Korea, it means seasonal. It means it's a 2-month job, or a 3-month job, or a 5-month job, or an 11-month job, but we don't imagine you working until you retire. Okay. We don't imagine you work. So if you have a summer vacation job and you work July and August, and you're working 55 hours a week in construction, and you're making good money, I'm happy for you, right? But you took that job, you knew that it's not your lifetime job. You're doing it to make money so you can go back to school in September, I hope. So that is a seasonal job or a non-permanent job. Lots of people have a Christmas time job or a winter vacation job or summer vacation job. All right, so these are all jobs. It's a one narrow definition. I'm hired by a certain company to do a certain kind of work. Now, occupation sounds like there will be a series of jobs, one after the other, in the same field. Hopefully, as time goes by and you grow more expertise, you will be able to get a higher step in that career, that occupation. I'm going to save career for another one. All right. Hopefully, you're going to save that. You're going to find another job. But some people, they never do. They just keep working in the same occupation. I work at a gas station. I pump gas. And that's all I do. But I do it for 5 or 6 different companies over 30 years. It's my field. Well, gas station attendant is probably not a very good occupation. But maybe a truck driver. You might change companies 2 or 3 or 4 times in your career. All right, so occupation is a field of work. Career is talking more about me and my series of jobs. And my career could cross different occupations. So occupation is looking at the job type or the job field. And career is looking at my life. So if you talk about Robert Dickey, he's had a very diverse career because he has worked at a flower shop, so let's call that florist, that's the right name. He's worked in fast food, McDonald's. He's worked in retail at a couple different stores as a clerk, but then also as an assistant manager while I was still in school. He has worked in NGOs. He has worked at 4 NGOs. And in one NGO, he had 4 different jobs, starting off as a university intern and finishing up as an assistant director and lawyer. And then he came to Korea. And he's worked in 4 different universities, plus a high one. 4 universities. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 universities plus a high one. So my career is very diverse. I've done quite a number of things. I also did a lot of consultancy in education, in writing. I used to do a lot of writing for people. They paid me. I did it. So my career is very diverse. But we could also talk about a career in fast foods. You got a job while you were in college working at McDonald's. When you graduated, they gave you a job as assistant manager, and you work at McDonald's for 30 years, and you become not only manager of a store, but manager of a region. You have a career in fast food. You might decide after working for McDonald's for some years to open your own fast food restaurant. And you're still in fast food, and you're still working on your career, and people could say, yeah, he has a career in fast foods. So career can be personal and not specific to a field, although that can also be your occupation. Occupation sounds like where you're working now. Career sounds longer term. Career, a series of connected jobs by a field. Occupation, your series of connected jobs for you. So they might be connected only through you, but not through other people, right? Because being a university professor, being a nonprofit CEO, being a lawyer, being a retail store manager, being a flower shop worker and driver, I forgot I was a driver, those things aren't very well connected, except through me. Finally, we talk about profession, and profession, well, ties. Profession does not mean professor. Profession means a field of work, a career, an occupation where people need higher level of education and or some kind of licensing or degree. A CPA, a doctor, a lawyer, yeah, maybe a professor. All right, so profession, higher level of education. So I'm going to write these out for you real quick. I'm going to help you that much. Occupation, series of jobs related by the person or FIELD. Field, you can't see that. I need to shrink me a little bit. See, I have too much ego. Career. Series of jobs related by the field of work. Sounds lifetime. Profession. Career with higher education or licensing required. Tie job. Necktie. Tie job. Now, the problem with profession is that sometimes people argue whether or not it's a profession. For example, is a teacher, elementary school teacher, a profession? Some people would say no. Yeah, it's got a license, but it's pretty kind of a low-level license, people think, and your job is not so sophisticated. Doesn't require a high level of education, just a bachelor's degree. A nurse, same problem. People say, well, it's a kind of a dirty job. U.S. nursing has a more respect than in Korea. That's just the way society sees it. But still, doctors tend to say that nurses are not professionals because they don't have the same education we do. So people can argue what's a profession or what's not. So job, occupation, career, profession, employment or work, part-time or full-time, seasonal or permanent. Got it? It's all there. Shrink. What do you do? How long have you been in this position? Where did you work before this? Now, remember that on your midterm test, I could ask you, now is 5 years after university. It's the year 2030. What do you do? How long have you been in this position? I can ask you these questions, right? So number 4 says, now take turns asking and answering the questions above with a partner. We're not in live situation this week, so you need to think about it and kind of practice by yourself. Page 21 we took a quick look at in the Zoom last week. I want to talk about one of the key points in it after I walk through it one more time. There isn't any special accent or anything in the audio, so I'm going to walk through it really quick. And she says, Mr. Ono, my name's Patricia Benton. I really enjoyed your presentation. So they must be at some kind of conference or something. Or she might say, I really admire your work. To admire means to respect, to like, to think that it's really good. And he just says, well, thank you. So she's introducing herself. And she says, I'm with Marden Pharmaceuticals. We're very interested in your research. So pharmaceutical is a pharmacy company, the company that explores, invents, and then sells drugs, good drugs, medical drugs. And he says, well, I'm delighted to hear that. Or that's good to hear. You know, it's nice to hear that somebody is respecting my work. And so he says, what area are you in? Or what area do you work in? Now, when he says area, he doesn't mean geography like Daegu. But you could misunderstand it. It could happen in English, right? We could misunderstand. Oh, I'm in the Southeast Division. But what he really means is what field, what area in employment do you work in? And she says, product development, but I do marketing as well. And the alternative is, she says, research and development, but I do marketing as well. So then he says, well, and how long have you been with Marden? Or how have you been with Marden? A long time? And she says, about 5 years, or since I got my degree. There's nothing really hard there, but it is something you should practice, because when you're in your test, if you do your self-introduction and you say, hi, my name is Kim Jung-min. I am the Sales Division Director for ABC Corporation. Go, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And how long have you been with ABC? I didn't think about that. Now, come on. Imagine 5 years in the future, or imagine 30 years in the future, because I don't tell you when. Think about your career. And if you want to, in your notebook, you can write your career history, so you'll be ready to talk about it. Now, she said she was in research and development. She said she was in product development. What do these things mean? Well, there's 3 things to look at. And I'm going to introduce them to you and also give you a story to help you understand. And that is here. And the story is the story of the Post-its, the Post-it note. Move this up a bit. Oh goodness, how come you won't move? That's interesting. I wonder what happened there. There we go. All right. So, research and development is the process of taking knowledge to the consumer, to the customer, to the final user. That's an idea, that's a way to describe it. Taking knowledge to the consumer, to the person who will use it. So R&D is actually divided into 3 sections. Research and development, R&D. We have basic research, applied research, and development, sometimes called product development. Basic research is pure science. We are exploring for the sake of knowledge. Okay? Just because it's interesting to me. It usually takes place at university with professors who have their dreams, their ambitions, their research. And we're not really thinking about how it's used. We're just exploring. So if you have been following the history of the elements, the basic elements in science, you know things like carbon, oxygen, right? I'm not good at the chart of it, but I think there's 114 now. But when I was in high school, there was like 104. We've discovered, and in fact, in some cases created, because they didn't exist in nature, some elements. So you think about things like CO2, right? Carbon dioxide. 1 carbon, 2 oxygens comes together, CO2. H2O, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, makes water, right? Hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen, da-da-da-da. These guys are playing because they want to discover new things. Applied research is when we take that basic research and we say, can we make something useful? Can we do something with this? And we're not exactly thinking yet about make money. But in fact, applied research might take place in the university, but very often they take place in the big research companies, in the big manufacturing companies that spend a certain amount of their budget in research, saying, we saw a paper in an academic journal that looked interesting and it might be useful. We're trying to figure out if we can make this university laboratory stuff actually something that we could do business with, make something useful out of it. And the third, product development, is when now we have something, we think it's useful, we think we can sell it, but we need to make it so that people will buy it. We have something useful, we think we can sell it, but we need to figure out how to make it so that people will buy it. We need to design it for sales. And a good story to explain this is post-it notes. Post-its, the little stickies, these thingies. This is a bigger one. You get smaller ones. Yellow is kind of a famous color, and we can talk about that. Here's some more. There's green ones and there's blue ones. And I have post-its all over the place. But anyway, so post-its were originally invented by the company called 3M. This company has been working with adhesive, that means sticky stuff, for about 100 years. And if you think about Scotch tape, that clear sticky tape that you use to glue paper and stuff like that, they invented what is the best, most popular brand, which is called Scotch tape. They've invented a lot of stuff. The recording tapes, if you remember the old reel-to-reel tapes or the cassette tapes, 3M invented what was the best known tape for audio tapes back in those days. And this is what they do. They spend lots of money in applied research. They spend a little bit of money in basic research, but a lot of money in applied research. So the story is that there were these guys working with glue, adhesive. They were trying to make a new glue. Here's a glue, right? Sticky glue. And I'm sure I probably have a half a dozen other glues in this disc. That's a glue, right? Fond. And where's my other glue? Here's a glue that's in a bag because it's runny. A white glue. So, this guy was in the glue department. And he was trying to find a glue that was super sticky, that just like wouldn't let go. So he's mixing this compound and that compound, and basically somewhere in the basic research area. He's mixing, carbons and stuff to try to make a new glue. And he got this glue, and it wasn't what he wanted. This glue didn't stick very well. In fact, if you put it on paper and put it on another paper, it came off and on and off. It was just sticky enough to stay on. Just sticky enough to stay on. But it was easy to take off. For example, on the side of my face, it sticks, comes off with no pain, right? And he's like, well, what the heck? That's not what I was trying to do. What the heck do I do with that? I don't really want to give it up because it's kind of interesting, but what do I do with that? It was a glue. Somebody who had a more applied research mind said, I think we can do something with that. So he got some scratch paper, you'd say EPA3, right? Some waste paper, and put some glue on it. And that it happens that waste paper was yellow. Something like this. I don't know if you can see the color very well. But it was kind of a yellow. And put some sticky on it. And cut it into smaller sizes. And then when he was sending a message to somebody, he would put that sticky on it and he would write on the sticky. That way, when somebody got the paper, they could take the sticky off and it was a beautiful, clean piece of paper. His memo, his note, was on the little scratch paper, scrap paper. We say scratch. You could say scrap paper, EPA3, right? Maybe it has something written on the backside that he'd glued on. And they said, wow, this is cool. This is neat stuff. So it went from a basic research of this glue kind of fails to, can we make something useful? Well, yeah, it kind of sticks. Let's just make some little memo notes inside the company. That was the applied research, finding a way to use it. Then somebody thought we could sell that, but we need to work on it a little bit. Maybe we need to change the glue just a tiny little bit, and we need to find out what is a good size for these sticky notes the first time we bring them out. What's a good color? What are some good characteristics? And now you can find Post-its everywhere, in the mini mart, the 7-Eleven, in the stationery shops, the Ungujeom. It came from a mistake. It came from something that didn't work as well as it should. It was a basic research that was like, ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. To an applied research, this is interesting. Can we make something useful out of this? To product development, saying, how do we customize this so that people will want to buy it? Research and development. Basic research, applied research, product development, which we usually simply call R&D. So, that is the story for page 21. Turn your book to page 22. We're right at 60 minutes, and we're going to do this next listening activity, which is about one man and his career. And let's see. It is audio file number 30. I need to get my earphone. I forgot that. And so on page 30, the theme is, have you always worked in banking? I want to start off by saying this story is not very strange. It's not normal in Korea, even still. But in the U.S., changing companies is not at all strange. Not at all strange. So let's go ahead and hear the story of Bob Coronado.
Page 22. Business Connections. Listening. Have you always worked in banking? Exercise 1. Bob Coronado is Vice President of Marketing at an international investment bank in New York. Look at Bob's employment history. Listen and number the items 1 to 4. 4 equals his most recent position.
Okay, so listen carefully. 4 is the most recent, the thing he's doing now or just finished doing. So 1 will be his earliest, such as just after high school.
Good morning and welcome to the world of business. Today we look at careers in marketing, and here to tell us all about it is Robert Coronado. Coronado is the Vice President of Marketing at Northwest Bank in New York. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. Have you always been in banking?
No, most of my career was spent in the computer industry, but I've always been in marketing.
How did you get into marketing?
Oh, by accident. Isn't that the way these things happen? No, after I graduated from college, I worked with MEG Systems, a company in Germany. Then I became interested in international business, so I went back to school. After that, I was hired by PS Software in California. They put me in international marketing. I stayed at PS for 10 years.
Why did you leave the computer industry?
Well, I needed a change.
So what did you do?
Actually, I went to China with my family for 6 months.
Really? That sounds interesting.
It was a wonderful experience.
Tell us about your job at Northwest Bank. You haven't been in this position for very long, have you?
No, just since last year.
Was that when you started with the bank?
No, I've been with Northwest Bank for 3 years. I was director of marketing for 2 years before I became VP of marketing.
Were you surprised that you ended up in banking?
Yes, it was a different world from the computer industry in Silicon Valley.
Are you glad that you made the move to New York?
Oh, yes, I love it here.
Okay, so his first job, as we see in the book, he worked in the sales department for MEG Systems in Hanover, Germany. His voice is definitely American English. It's definitely American. But his first job was to work overseas. Second, Director of International Marketing at PS Software in Sunnytown, California. Third, Director of Marketing, Northwest Bank, New York, New York. So look at this guy. He went from, I'm not sure where he was in high school or college, but then he went to Germany, and then he took a break, remember? And he went to China, and then he came back to California. That's number 2. And then he went to New York, all the way across the country. That's 5,000 kilometers. That's a 5-hour, maybe 6-hour airplane ride. Not some easy commute. And number 4, his current job, he's Vice President of Marketing at Northwest Bank. Right? So from number 3, Director of Marketing, to number 4, Vice President of Marketing. So still in marketing, but he got a job increase. He sometimes means there's another department or division put under him to get the promotion, but sometimes it just means you've done a good job and want to say, good job, good boy, nice job. One of the secrets in business is that sometimes they don't want to give you a pay raise, so they give you a promotion by title. And your work might not change, and your desk might not change, and your staff might not change, but you feel good because they recognized you. This is really true, and it definitely happens in the U.S. I know several people that's happened to. They got a job title improvement, and they got a little bit more pay. But it was a way to say, hey, we respect you. You're doing a good job. We want to recognize your good job by giving you a better name card. And that's basically what that is sometimes. But in other times, as I said, you can go from director to vice president, and suddenly, instead of just being director of one division, you become vice president, and they put other sections in your division. They make your job wider, higher. All right, we're going to listen again. And this time, as you listen, complete the sentences.
Have you always worked in banking? Exercise 1. Bob Coronado is Vice President of Marketing at an international investment bank in New York. Look at Bob's employment history. Listen and number the items 1 to 4. 4 equals his most recent position.
Okay, again, we've already done that, so all you're trying to do here is to fill in the blanks.
Good morning, and welcome to the world of business. Today, we look at careers in marketing, and here to tell us all about it is Robert Coronado. Coronado is the Vice President of Marketing at Northwest Bank in New York. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. Have you always been in banking?
No, most of my career was spent in the computer industry, but I've always been in marketing.
How did you get into marketing?
Oh, by accident. Isn't that the way these things happen? No, after I graduated from college, I worked with MEG Systems, a company in Germany. Then I became interested in international business, so I went back to school. After that, I was hired by PS Software in California. They put me in international marketing. I stayed at PS for 10 years.
Why did you leave the computer industry?
Well, I needed a change.
So what did you do?
Actually, I went to China with my family for 6 months.
Really? That sounds interesting.
It was a wonderful experience.
Tell us about your job at Northwest Bank. You haven't been in this position for very long, have you?
No, just since last year.
Was that when you started with the bank?
No, I've been with Northwest Bank for 3 years. I was director of marketing for 2 years before I became VP of marketing.
Were you surprised that you ended up in banking?
Okay, before he went to banking, Bob worked in the computer industry. After he graduated, Bob worked at MEG Systems, Hanover, Germany. He went back to school to study international marketing. He stopped working in the computer industry. Sorry, brain just turned off. He worked in the computer industry for how many years? I don't remember. I didn't write it down. He stopped working in the computer industry because he got burned out. He went to China for 6 months, was that? With his family? I don't remember. It's Sunday night and I'm burned out. It's 9:30 p.m. Sorry. Gee, Bob has been vice president since... And he's been with Northwest Bank for something like 3 years, right? All right. Yeah, I'm done here. We're over time, and my brain has just shut down in the last 5 minutes. Last notes remind you that you have an assignment looking backwards, and you can use this as a model. I did. If you don't remember how he did this, you can, after you've watched this video one time, you can go back onto the CTL, or you can go into the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, RJDICKEY, and listen to hear how he did it. Next class, we will be looking at fast-tracking employees, a smart move. I think this is an important idea. Excuse me. And I want you to read it, think about it. Some semesters I have an extra reading, an additional reading on fast-tracking that I use. I haven't decided if I'll use it this semester. Our schedule's a little bit off because we've delayed exams, so I'm not sure. But that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking at in our next recorded lecture, which I will put up online, I guess, Wednesday night, because we normally have class Thursday morning. On that class, we will be looking at page 24. We'll be looking at the bottom of page 25. Think about the useful language. And we'll be looking at a few other things. Again, we're not going to do the speaking on page 23. Page 23, speaking exercise, because we don't have a live class this week. We may jump back into it next week. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, everything's kind of a little bit of a scramble. Don't worry too much about that. We won't go past chapter 4 for our test. So we have some things we can backtrack on. If you have questions, do send me an email or a cookout or a text message, or write something in the Q&A section on the e-board. I'll look at it. It will help give me some ideas what's going on. Next week, the second meeting, which would be a Zoom class, we will do a review, a summary. It'll be a good time for you to ask questions about the midterm test, which is a one-to-one, man-to-man interview. I think I'm done for the evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And Shift F10 is to quit.